Okay. There are a lot of CBC memes that I've seen on social media. Some are cartoons, some are in terms of plays, some in terms of acting. They purport to represent the ongoing curriculum-based, the new curriculum that the government is implementing. I don't know what is your view of the new curriculum. I don't know what is your interaction, your experience with the CBC. So there's a lot of fun going on social media in terms of how the curriculum is being carried out. But it's not just the fun that we're having, but the parents actually are having problem in terms of even helping their children to do the assignments. It looks tedious, it looks cumbersome. Is it because we are used to the 844 system, or is it that we had a false start in terms of rolling out the curriculum, the competence-based curriculum? So talk to us. Maybe some of you guys are parents. What is your interaction with CBC? Mtoto wako amekwambia nini ama amekuitisha nini ipelekwe shule? Nimeona some carrying very funny materials to go use them for competence-based curriculum. Now, I saw one of the funniest video, students asking for report cards. They are wondering why others are receiving report cards. They are being called, mentioned to be number 1, 2, 3 in class. Yet those who are in the CBC program, they are not enjoying that benefit. So there's a sort of dilemma and confusion in what is happening in our education sector. I don't know what is your view of CBC program. Let's just have a view of the things that people are raising in line to their program, and let's have a brief discussion over the same, and then we call it a night. Yeah, I'll share a few clips so that it can help us capture what people are saying in terms of CBC.
Mtihani alafu sasa hivi wanaita watu namba na sisi hatuitwi.
Yaani hawa wameitwa namba
Standard 6, Standard 7 na Standard 8. Na sisi tunawachwa kama namba bottom.
nini inaonyesha ni namba bottom?
Hatujaitwa majina pale.
Hamjaitwa kumaanisha?
Sisi namba bottom.
Hakuna mtu amesema namba bottom. Sema tu vizuri. Ulitaka waite namna gani?
Sisi wote. Sisi wote tulitaka. Sisi wote.
Okay, masomo haya sahihi ya CBC hakuna kuita namba 1 na namba 2.
Waache kuleta mtihani.
Rudia.
Waache kuleta mtihani.
Waache kuleta mtihani.
Ndio.
Sasa hiyo mtaambia mwalimu mkuu akikuja. Sawa? Ndio. Ndio. Sisi leo kuanzia leo tumefunga.
Mtihani.
Tukutane kama half time imekwisha.
Tukutane kesho.
Okay, wanafunzi waamini wamefunga tu hivyo kienyeji. And they are getting a culture shock between the 844 system where after exams you get report cards, and then you are called, you're told you are number 1, you're number 2, number 3, like that. But the CBC seems to leave them in a limbo, in a confusion. They don't know what exactly has happened. They don't know what they have achieved at the end of the term. And so we don't know whether this competence, first of all, are we buying the idea? Have we done civic education? It seems we need civic education even before we start rolling out this program. Parents themselves are having problems to understand what is going on. Some teachers are also struggling with it, and the society just mocking the whole thing. So we need more information and direction on what CBC is all about.
Progress, is it working or is it not?
My assessment of CBC program, Trevor, is that it is not working. This was a rushed curriculum. This is a curriculum that is not sustainable in our country. It's a curriculum that is designed for the rich. It's a curriculum that is designed for an enlightened society. A society such as Kenya cannot afford to meet the requirements of CBC. For the following reasons, Trevor. One, CBC is very expensive for our economy and for our parents. CBC requires resources such as ICT materials. They require students to have ICT gadgets that they do not have. They require students to have materials for practicals because it is a practical-oriented curriculum. Our parents cannot afford the materials and our government is not able to supply the materials. You cannot change a curriculum to such an effective curriculum and practical curriculum as is CBC, and then what you do, you do not increase the funding. We are all aware that what Kibaki used to fund free primary education, which was 2,000 shillings, less than 2,000 shillings per pupil, is what the government is funding the same program today. Yet the curriculum has come at a cost. Where are we getting the money to meet this extra cost? The burden is going to parents. And remember, one of the objectives and the requirements of our education system is that it must be affordable. Since it is not affordable, it is not practical in our society.
Okay.
Okay, tunaambiwa since it's not affordable, it's not practical. This is what Francis Atwoli said. The economic assumption underlying the CBC makes it nothing short of ridiculous. If anyone were to look at it vis-a-vis our economic realities, and when the times come, if indeed we must have a CBC, we should focus on the philosophy behind CBC and not the practice. It seems CBC is an expensive venture, and with our economic realities, we cannot afford it. Is it true? Talk to us, give us your perspective. So far, what are your misgivings of the same? And what is your perspective? Do you really support the government to continue pushing the idea of CBC on Kenyans, or is it time they have a rethink on what needs to be implemented in terms of our curriculum? Is it working for us? Okay, let's hear what the professor said.
Is here to stay, and no complaints will force the government to change course on the matter. Those are words of the Education Cabinet Secretary George Magoha, who says that while the system isn't perfect, it places the learner at the center of learning. During a meeting with the Kenya Editors Guild, Magoha defended the curriculum while promising the challenges would be ironed out.
And do not be surprised if we come out very strongly telling you that there are certain facts which have been deliberately ignored by both the so-called specialists and the most learned members of the press. You ignore because you have refused to check. Most of the facts are available. For example, on the small matter of the digital learning program, you are aware, and it is on the website, if you care to look, that in every county, in the public schools, the devices are there. We have what we call a container. You can start from the extreme, which is the lecture method, and you go up to the other extreme, which is demonstration and role play. All these, so what we are trying to do is to help our teachers move towards the other end of the container. Now, what causes confusion, and this one has been shown by research, the way that we conduct our assessment predominantly influences the way that we go to prepare the learners. That is research. So that is why, as we talk of the CBE, which is competence-based education, we look at the curriculum and the assessment, because the two relate.
For 5 days, and thereafter, the curriculum support officers are supposed to follow the teachers at the school level and continuously train them and discuss with them. And what we have now even introduced is what we call communities of practice, where different schools gather and they can discuss more on what is required in the teaching and learning.
And I have witnessed practically has already started training teachers on how to develop assessment items. We have a tradition of teachers that was used to buying test papers here and there, parents buying test papers, spending money. NEC is saying assessment is part of the learning process, and the teacher needs that capacity to develop those items, which NEC collects, and it's in their portal, and teachers are enabled to select, and that will improve as we proceed.
So my job is to ensure that a child in the remotest part of this country is not disadvantaged. We are providing teachers and we are paying them. We are going to continue to provide what is required. Stop distracting the parents. Stop confusing the 5 million children who are already hooked on the CBC, that you are going to stop it through a court process. The trauma is too much and it is not necessary. If it is politics, it is not worth it. It's not worth it at all.
Okay. The professor thinks that despite the hiccups, the process needs to go forth, and we need to reduce too much politicking around it. He sees those opposed to it as just undermining the process. He knows, yes, he acknowledges there are hiccups, there are challenges towards implementing the process, but every stakeholder needs to seek to improve it rather than trying to discredit it so that it can be disbanded. So what do you think? Should the process go on? Should we maintain the tough stance or listen to each other? Be able to improve the areas we can, be able to remove things that are not necessary in the program for now, or they are not affordable. We can go with what we can afford. Can we make a hybrid system then, which is generally acceptable with the parents, and it's able to be implemented so that we can move forward? So talk to us. We'll be reading your comments. So just put your comment in the comment section. I've also shared the link. So if you want to join in the studio and make your live contribution, you are welcome. If you can't join the studio, then just put your contribution on the comment section, and I will try my best to read most of your comments. Okay, let's see what the parents are saying on CBC.
attempted blackmail of telling us we cannot discuss education because we are not teachers. We are teachers. And we can study the philosophy of education. And we have. So let us engage on the issues rather than engaging on personalities of saying that as a teacher you can't tell me this. We can tell you because you are teaching our children. And it's our right to discuss this system. Number two, methodology is everything in education. Methodology is everything. You can have the best content in the entire world. If you deliver it in a way that the learner cannot engage with, you're wasting resources, you're wasting time. Therefore, we must spend sufficient amounts of time discussing methodology. A teacher who's trained in the method she says has now changed, the lecture method. Turning that teacher into a teacher who will be a facilitator in a competency-based system or a problem-based system, which I have gone through, you have to go through training. You have to go through reorientation so that you don't become too directive, so that you become more of a facilitator than a lecturer. So it is a huge change. And if a teacher, you sit with a teacher and the teacher tells you, I have not been trained in this system, that is huge. So we have to engage on that. And we have to be honest in this engagement and say, it's true, we didn't train all the teachers at the beginning. We have in place a mechanism to try and reach as many of them as possible. We will not reach 100% of them in this time, but we will make a fair effort. And that can be set aside. Let me just go back to the question that I asked, because it has not been answered, and you know it hasn't been answered. The philosophy of our education system is unspoken. It's unspoken because it is old. It is old because it is pre-independence. The philosophy of our education system was to create a conveyor belt of workers for an elite, which that time was colonial. We got independence, we got a different set of elites. As Franz Fanon says, black skins, white masks. Okay, so we just exchanged the colonial elite with our own elite. And we refashioned the education system to continue serving that same purpose. So the philosophy of the education system, which we have never examined because maybe there are other considerations, is that we want to create worker bees who are organized the same way as bees are organized in a hive, where there are those who are drones, there are those who are workers, and then there are the queens who are the elite. And so the method of delivery is changing in order to produce better workers, or better worker bees, better drones, and to better serve the elite. You talk about using locally available resources, which she hasn't talked about. But the CBC that I have been told about is that it doesn't matter whether you don't have access to a computer or a printer. You can use locally available resources. This is the beginning of stratification of our society between the haves and the have-nots. Because those that have computers, they're telling me, before they go home, they print the homework, and they go home, put it together, the kid takes it to school. I don't know those who don't have access to computers, what they're printing. Parents are sitting with them, maybe playing with matope and creating models from matope. We are stratifying this country based on what I have and what my neighbor doesn't have. This is the conversation we must engage in. There's no problem with CBC as a method of delivery of education. Absolutely no problem. There might even be no problem with the content of the curriculum as it is right now. But this stratification of our society is a conversation we must have. In this time, we're only discussing that stratification in the context of education. If you go to health, it's exactly the same stratification. Go anywhere, in employment, it's exactly the same. So this is the deeper conversation we must have, rather than quibbling over whether CBC is better than lectures. These are settled arguments. We don't have to engage in them.
You know, Prof is trying to push me to the wall, but perhaps let me say this, that the things that we are saying here are the right things, and the issues that members of the public are expressing, it is reality, because that's what they are experiencing.
Yes.
So perhaps it's to ask, how do we address those issues? How do we enhance literacy of our children, their capacity to do numeracy and language activities? Somebody talked about competencies that we require. But then, how do we prepare teachers to be able to handle this? On the other side, how do we ensure that parents are not overburdened by the implementation of this? Let me just say that the task force prepared an implementation matrix that has activities, actually, and almost 50 pages of the task force report, this is the first task force to be able to create an implementation matrix. So if there is goodwill in government to implement CBC, we provided an implementation matrix for every of the issues that we are discussing here. Is it resources? Is it classrooms? Is it teacher preparation? Is it...
Did your implementation matrix have the same timelines we are seeing of the rollout right now?
Yes, yes, we do. Yes.
So how did you expect, and Muthe, I'll give you a chance, how did you expect, did you think government would have more money to build more classrooms, or what was your calculation like?
We did a survey across the country. We did actually a census of all schools in this country. This is the first task force. We did a census. And in some regions, we have excess capacity. If you go to Muranga, you can actually bring children that are occupying 4 schools into 1 school. So we did a census across the country of the infrastructure. So the infrastructure challenge in this country is not as big as we think. So in terms of implementation, I think it's more teacher preparation. How have we prepared teachers? But then number 2, something that we haven't addressed. Where does the public servant in this country take their child to school? Yeah. If we don't address that problem, CBC will not address the problems of Kenya. The fact that the public servant, the politician, the senior civil servant in this country does not prioritize public institution, we will not be able to address the problems we are dealing with in this country. Yes. They must take their children to the public primary school. They must take their children, when they are sick, they must go to Kenyatta for treatment. Then they will think about the problem of Kenyans. So the problem we are dealing with about the education system here is not about CBC is a bad methodology or approach or system of education. Is that the public servant is implementing education for them, not for his children.
Okay, you have heard it. Our problems go beyond the system of education. Maybe we are not addressing the social stratification. Even when we are implementing CBC, it's only for common mwananchi, but the leaders, their children go to different schools, and so they're using even different systems of education. So are we just trying to force the common mwananchi in a space where he doesn't fit in, bringing a more expensive program, yet we know that they don't have the capacity. And we are not even willing to build that capacity for the parents or intervene so that they are able to meet the challenges that comes with the implementation of the new curriculum. Okay, let me read a few comments. Welcome, Mala. Let me read a few comments from the comment section. Obena says, it's not about the details task. It's about the giving realistic assignments, things that are achievable at the respect of ages. Mtoto anafaa kusoma, kuelewa na kutekeleza maishani. But as it is, it's pure punishment. Obedi says that the assignments and the projects that our children are being exposed to, they appear to be more of punishment than assignment to help them achieve some competence, particular competence in life. Valerie Mohonja says CBC ina gharama mob sana, yani vitu ziko hapo ni irrelevant sana. Wazazi ndio wanaumia, yani zile mambo unaambiwa unafanya, yawa it is stressful and expensive. Okay, huyo ni mzazi anasema it's stressful because ni mzazi atasaidia kufanya your assignment. Nyenjo Senior anasema this page of Mtembei are not neutral people. This page supporting Raila. Oh yawa. So CBC ni ya Raila ama I thought we are discussing a topic away from politics. Okay. Changia sasa kwa CBC now that you don't like maybe the political shows that goes on here. We've given you today a break. You can focus on the debate to do with the education curriculum. Okay, John Mtie says CBC by force. Aha, anasema hii kitu tutakunywa kama dawa. Lazima. Okay. Obedi anasema imagine. Faith anasema CBC ina gharama. I think okay, let me just scroll down. CBC ina gharama mob sana. Wazazi wanaumia, walimu pia wanaumia sana. Okay, Faith amesema gharama ni mob. Francis Owino anasema there is nowhere in the world where a change in education be smooth. Everyone loves education system they went through. Only force works the world over. Okay, soon the greatest critics will be the champions of the now derided CBC. That is what happened to 844. Okay, Francis is telling us that these are teething problems. They normally happen. Human beings are always resistant to change. And change is never that easy, so we have to accept the challenges are there, but brace on with the transition. Okay. Kombe says CBC must fall by all means. Too many textbooks and too much exercise books. You are going to be overloaded. Or you are going to overload school children and their parents. Okay. Yeah, keep your comments coming. Obedi ananiambia I don't sound like a parent. Okay. Aha, niseme nini? I don't want to say on my behalf. I'm just speaking on behalf of you, the contributors. Okay, Kombe Moses says CBC must fall by all means. Too much textbooks, too much exercise books. I think that one we have read. Now, welcome, Mala. How are you, Mala?
Fine, thank you, Mr. Wekesa.
Yes.
Yes.
Watu wanasema mimi sio mzazi, sina habari ya CBC, wanaona kama naitetea lakini sitaki kuichukua stand. I'm just moderating. So you are a parent, tuambie, what is your experience with CBC?
You know, Kenya has very interesting issues running from political to their programs. Let me say this. There is a union called NAT in Kenya, Kenya National Union of Teachers. And there was a Secretary General called Sosioni. And this union was killed because of the CPC. I think the team there was telling the government the truth and the difficulties of implementing the CPC. And they were saying Kenya is not ready. You saw what happens? TSC, chair of TSC, another, and the minister was used to kill the union. But anyway, you asked me one question. There are many challenges facing the CPC, and is running from is cutting across. And one of the challenges is financial shortages, which is key to this implementation. And you see lack of finances to fund this new curriculum is one of the major challenges facing this new system. This is due to the fact that there is a lot that has to be done for the system to succeed, starting from the production of the books, training of the teachers, and you see the production of the books is actually key to the success of this. It actually requires a huge sum of money for the government to be able to run this program. Number two, which is equally important, is the shortage of trained teachers. The number of teachers trained for this new curriculum is quite low. It's very, very low and not enough for all the schools in Kenya. That is another issue. Issue which is also important is resources. There's lack of resources. There's a shortage of resources, which include, I mentioned initially, textbooks, machines for the new curriculum in many public schools all over the country. This is mostly due to the large number of students in these public schools. You see, that is very, very key. The other component is the lack of training facilities. You find that teachers' training facilities for the new curriculum are very limited. And this has contributed, or rather resulted, to very few number of trained teachers for the curriculum. This is very, very important. You cannot just roll out the CPC without adequate training of the teachers. I think the other issue, and the many speakers have been talking about this, is the poor infrastructure. You find that many public schools lack the basic classroom details, such as enough desk or even a decent classroom. And this poses a challenge to the new curriculum, since the poor infrastructure fails to accommodate it. You know, this is key. You know, in some schools, you're telling them, you're saying that some of these pupils should be given the computers, and you know, lack of those things, it will not work. And there was also, if you remember, the parents and many other stakeholders, there was opposition, big opposition from many Kenyans. Some people are usually not, most people are not the biggest fan of change. And many Kenyans trusted the old 844 system. Therefore, introducing something new and totally different sounds threatening to many. You know, people are used to 844, and always change is very difficult. And then finally, the attitude, student attitudes and behaviors. You find the curriculum pays curriculum is new to all students in Kenya. And remember, it was first introduced to class 4 students who are quite young. Kids in public school usually have different backgrounds and upbringing. As a result, the reaction to new method of learning is totally different. You cannot compare a student from Nairobi or from urban areas in Nairobi and from your village in Vihiga. Is it Vihiga or Mumias? They're not going to be at the same level. So those are some of the issues, or those are some of the challenges facing this CBC. And what we are seeing is that come 2022, I think the new president in 2022 may scrap this program and we move to something else, because it is totally fair. I was seeing somewhere tomorrow, I think it will be 22nd tomorrow, that Citizen TV, we are going to have the governor of Bomet, who is more knowledgeable. It looks, I've listened to that guy, and he is able to explain. And I will be listening to him tomorrow at Citizen TV at around, I think this time, just to hear more, because there's a lot of problems. This government is facing a lot of issues. Thank you, Wanawekeza. That is my submission for today.
Okay, I think you have brought out many issues ranging from resources to lack of training, lack of preparedness. And why do you think did the government not sit down and program and count the cost that
the government actually,
these are expected challenges? These are this is our input. We need to train I think that from the start we were told that teachers were trained. So it seems the training they had was inadequate. Or what is the issue?
I started by saying Nat was killed because of this. You know, Nat was open, and they told off the government because of they were telling them about the training. They actually Nat raised most of these issues. The guy called Soshan actually was very, very detailed, and he was trying to help the government, to tell the government this program will not work if 1, 2, 3, if some of these challenges are not, some of these issues are not addressed. And they were saying we need to train the teachers, we need to build classes, all those things. He raised most of these issues. But what happens? The TSC lady, the chair lady, and other government stakeholders, including this minister called Makoha, was used by the government to kill the Nat. And that's why you're seeing now to kill the Nat and to force now. After killing the Nat, they were able now to force Kenyans to accept this program.
Okay, let's listen to also 1 or 2 clips.
Competency-based curriculum. A parent has now moved to court to put brakes on the new curriculum. Esther Awor Adero, who is also an advocate, has filed a petition at the High Court seeking suspension of further implementation of the CBC. The petitioner says the curriculum is imposing an economic burden on parents of procuring course books and learning materials, among other school items. Raquel Muigai reports.
According to court documents filed on Thursday, the 16th of September at the Milimani Law Court, the petitioner has identified several respondents, namely the Cabinet Secretary responsible for basic education, the Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development, the Kenya National Examination Council, Teachers Service Commission, Kenya National Union of Teachers, the National Assembly, Interior CS Fred Matiang'i, and Education CS George Magoha. Esther Award, through her lawyer Nelson Harvis, states that implementation of the CBC curriculum is manifestly unconstitutional and unlawful, as the legal framework necessary for the change of the system and the structure of education from 844, and or the adoption of the CBC curriculum recommended to the CS for Basic Education and the KICD by the National Assembly has not been put in place up to date. Awar faults KICD, indicating that it has not demonstrated that it initiated and conducted research to inform the approval to the national government of the CBC curriculum. She also argues that the Kenya National Examination Council has not demonstrated that it set examination standards or undertook research on education assessment. This coming at a time when there has been public uproar regarding the CBC curriculum.
The CBC is here to stay. We have a duty as parents and grandparents not to confuse our 5 million children, some of whom are already in their 5th year. And let that message sink very, very clearly, because it was well researched.
According to Education CS Professor George Magoha, CBC is working. He has seen this, he says, in over 500 schools he has visited.
Why should an educated person go and say, you see, CBC never passed through Parliament? And then that conversation continues for a very long time. Yet everybody knows that the document was stuck there for 6 months. Meli is still alive, he's still a member of Parliament. All his colleagues who are in the committee are still alive. We don't have time to go and waste arguing about things that are obvious.
The national rollout of the competency-based curriculum started in January 2019 at pre-primary 1 and 2 and grades 1, 2 and 3 in lower primary, a curriculum that was touted as the most ideal for the country. Awar wants the case to be heard by a bench of not less than 5 judges. The court is yet to set the date for mention. Raquel Muigai, Citizen TV.
Okay, Mala, is CBC likely to face a BBI moment where BBI took 1, 2, 3, 4 years and then all of a sudden the court stopped it?
Yes.
Will CBC face a BBI moment?
It will, because it didn't, and I need to confirm, I think the full process was not followed, and is likely to face the same challenge as BPI. This was a government project, and as you can see, the president, Makoa, and the president in person actually forced this thing on Kenyans.
Okay, that is very interesting. If at all we can have that, so where do we leave our children? We go back to the same system? If at all the court halts the process of the curriculum, the CBC, will you go back to the old system?
What will happen
to the children who have been in that transition?
I think we'll have to open a new conversation. The parents now will have to make decisions, and all the stakeholders, and on the way forward. We may have to go back to the old 844 system, unless now the government pump in all the resources. But you know, we are in red. There's no money now, as you can see now. Even the petrol, I don't know. Understand in Nairobi is now 135. Is it 135 shillings a liter? So there's no money. So we may go back to 844 system, unless government pump in a lot of money to address some of those issues.
Okay, let me read 1 or 2 comments, then I welcome Wahome to give us his input on the CBC. We have Katua Joseph says, accept change and solve problems. Nothing takes a single step to implement everything. Everything takes time. Parents don't want this CBC because they with funny excuses, because it cuts across, parent must accept to boost their kids. Okay. And then we have Irene Wekesa says, CBC is expensive. I'm seeing parents huku Shako struggling akihadi. I feel pain unless the government steps in to rescue poor parents. Even buying a simple pencil of 5 bob is hard for some. The essentials needed daily for practical, some are costly. Yeah, okay. On that issue, the Minister of Education, the CS of Education said that the reason why we're having a lot of memes is that people, every child, when he's asked to come with teaching materials, they carry things that are easily available from their home. Then the question comes, will there be standardization of what is happening? Because everybody cannot just come with the different materials and expect us to have a lesson, learn the same lesson, and then make something out of it. So I think there's something called standardization, where we need, if learners are given an opportunity to learn, then they need to be learning using the same materials, using the same tools, so that we can see the results. When we see different results, and then we know that they hit a level playing field. But if we can say that those children who can afford will buy the materials that are different from those who are unable, maybe they pick whatever they pick at home. So there is no standardization in terms of the materials they are using. So how will we get the same results? That's the question, the big question that we may not answer now. I hope the government will listen and answer. James Wahome.
Yes.
How are you? This is a very difficult topic. There are things that sometimes discussing is difficult, and
Yes.
This topic has been has been on and off in the media, but there is no agreement, even from the teacher side, parent side, and the ministry and government side. They don't seem to agree on the way forward for CBC. It appears on one side they are pushing it to happen. On the other side, there's a resistance because they think that the system was not okay. The environment has not been well prepared for the system to be implemented. What is your take on this?
Thank you for inviting me. Well, what I know is that change is always resistant. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, you are loud and clear. Proceed.
Yes. Change is always resistant. If you had the experience, you also notice that 84 system was initially resistant by certain quarters. So it is not new. Human beings don't like change. However, there are pertinent issues that have come up in the CBC that need to be looked at. I think our education has developed over the years, The first phase was that of creating many office workers, that is immediately after independence, which was successfully done. But as we reached towards the end of 1990, as we started 1990, there was a realization that we needed to rejig our education system to accommodate technical. However, what followed was that the government was not able to invest seriously in the technical arm of that education system. However, the need for technical arm of the education system continued being important. And there's a new realization that our country, where we've reached now, we are at a stage of industrial takeoff. And therefore, we have to rejig the education again to fit the circumstances that we are in, that we have to produce more people who can bring value to our sectors in terms of innovation, in terms of the technical side of education. And therefore, for me, the issue here is that maybe we've been too comfortable with the systems that were there before, because they followed a certain line that had become predictable. And then we kind of had a system that knowledge was rammed through the students. And now the CBC has given a leeway to the students to come up with ideas, and also given the teacher the opportunity to assist the child to understand himself or herself, and a placement into the sectors that they would really want to get involved in. You also realize that the transformation that we've gone through has brought forth new areas of employment. We did not have a very strong inclination towards the art, particularly music, sports, and such like fields. In fact, they were highly discouraged in the former systems. They were seen as waste of time. Therefore, for me, I would just say this: we just have to live with changes. Of course, there are teething problems. Of course, we don't have well-trained teachers. Of course, we may lack, equipment here and there, but we must start somewhere. We cannot stick into doing the same thing and expecting different results. If you explore very well countries that have developed, they have developed because of the education systems that they put in place. And one of the best system is that system that produces people who can innovate in their areas of expertise or the areas of concern or interest. I think I don't know whether there's anything else you'd want to ask. That is my take. Yes, Wekesa?
Okay, thank you. James Kibiwot says,
yes.
James Kibiwot says that we don't have infrastructure and resources to mobilize for implementation of the same.
Yes.
What's your take?
Can he expound on what he means infrastructure? Because we can use very strong ones and very big ones that may be just, we fall in the trap of those who, you also discover there is what we call edupreneurs in this sector who have been making money. And of course, a change cuts the streams, cuts their financial streams. So let us be very careful not to fall into the traps of these people.
Maybe because you have said he expounds.
Yes.
I heard Mala using the same words, terminologies, infrastructure. Mala, are you able to expound on that so that he can respond? What is your view in terms of infrastructure? What is the infrastructure needed to implement the CBC? Mala, you are on mute.
I mentioned I think 10 or 8 issues. And one of them is what you're asking me, the poor infrastructure. And I think I was saying that many Kenyan public schools lack the basic classrooms, details such as enough desk, and these are basics, or even decent classroom. And this is this poses a challenge to this new curriculum, the CPC, since the poor infrastructure fails to accommodate some of these issues. And this is basic. We have not even moved in to talk about computers and those other things. We're talking about the basic things. And if you listen to, I don't know whether you happen to listen to the guy I was talking about, the Secretary General of the former Secretary General of NAT, and in his in 2019, and I think in 2019 around February he issued some statement on the CPC that Kenya is not that we are not ready, and he went ahead and he raised some of the issues I have mentioned, and some of the complaints he was raising was the CPC implementation, was lack of teacher training, lack of enough CPC textbooks, and he was also talking about lack of laws guiding its implementation, and those were the issues he mentioned. And he was saying that the president and the minister actually was forcing Kenyans on this, and they were in a rush in implementing. You know, we're in a rush. I don't know why we're always in a rush in hurrying the implementation. The gentleman was there, has given us a history and of trying to do the comparative analysis of the 844 and the old system. And for sure, you see, for the last 6 years, Kenya has had the 844 system of education, which actually comprise 8 years in primary, 4 years in secondary, and another 4 years in the university. And that system was preceded by the 74233, which had 7 years of primary education, 4 years of lower secondary education, 2 years of higher secondary education, and 3 university education. Now we are in the we are now in the process of implementing this CPC, and I think Kenyan first was we could have done enough research. And if you look at the disadvantages and advantages, and the gentleman has mentioned, CBC, it sounds good, because if you look at the 844 system and comparing with the CPC, I think CPC is actually the way to go. But it is the way we've done implementation. We did not follow the process was not followed. Some of those procedures were not followed. We were meant to address most of those things. I had mentioned earlier when I was doing my submission to ensure, we're supposed to ensure that we train the teachers, make sure all the resources are there, the training facilities, we address the poor infrastructure, which I mentioned, remember, And remember, we needed now to campaign and do public, what do you call it? Because you see, most of the question, the gentleman said that Kenyans are resistant to change, which is true. I agree. So we're supposed now to talk to Kenyans and try to convince them, because most of them were opposing this thing. And also, I spoke about the attitudes of students and the behaviors. So all those things, if addressed well, then I think it will be good to go. But you see, this thing was forced, it was rushed by the government and forced onto the people of Kenya. Thank you, Panacea.
Okay, I will bring back the issue of Soshon, but let's have James Wahome respond.
Yes, I was waiting for my colleague to bring out exactly what infrastructure is. But what I hear from him are just mere grouses from people who perhaps in Kenya, you got to be very careful. When people oppose something, they may have a hidden agenda. They may be looking at more of what they are going to lose should change come. Therefore, I was waiting for my colleague to tell me exactly what it is the infrastructure is talking about. Of course, we don't have enough classes, and we never have ever had enough classes. In the past, in the 844 system, you go to parts of this country, you still find children under the tree. But basically, what it is that the CBC is more or less a locally oriented kind of education where the child is tapped from young age. You are able to know the rights and inclinations of a child and the talents, and then tap those and direct them towards fulfillment through the system. Therefore, for me, I think I would be very, very careful if I am to take those high-sounding ones, like we lack infrastructure. The only thing here is that perhaps the training and reorienting our teachers to embrace the new system could be a bigger issue than the so-called infrastructure. You will be very surprised that those who have been training in this ministry have been a major hindrance to change, because they have what they will lose out. It is also not true to say that this system was just foisted on the parents. That's not true. If you go to Kenya Institute of Education, you are going to find the processes that were used, the stakeholders that were called, the research that was done, and the combination of all these factors to bring to fruition the stage in which we are. Of course, there are those who would want the system drained so that they sell the textbooks that they had already produced for the former system, and so on and so forth. This we know. But when you hear somebody just merely saying infrastructure, don't just be carried away by such high-sounding ones. They could be meaning somebody trying to protect what could go in his or her pocket. So basically what it is that we got to move on. I am fully in support of this system. I never went through it, of course, and having experience in the former systems, I think the former systems were a bit wasteful in the sense that they were never sensitive to the needs and inclinations and prevalences of our children. We were kind of handing our children like cattle to a certain destination, and even making them do things that they would not want to do or learn, and therefore wasting talent, wasting opportunities, misdirecting efforts, wasting resources, and all that. So my colleague who talks about infrastructure, you'd rather disintegrate this word to what infrastructure is. Classes, yes, we never had enough anytime. So I don't agree. I don't agree at all. That's it.
Okay, maybe just to simplify, when we talk about infrastructure, actually, you cannot talk about a system without infrastructure. For example, when you are doing, let's just use one of the things we do in 844. If you're doing chemistry, this is what we call the chemist theory. And there is what we call chemist practical. When you look at, there was one time our principal told us that, do you know, I have invested 1 million in this laboratory, 1 million. Just to have you the right reagents, the right apparatus for you to do your practicals and be able to succeed. So this is what we are saying. When you go to the theory part, it looks simplified and not costly. But when you come to the practical, you need to invest more for you to get the results. So we are not saying the practical, in fact, practical is good, yes, but we are saying, are we supported to do the practicals? That is a big question that we're asking. If somebody else can invest 1 million in a laboratory and another person doesn't have the cash, so how will this system ensure fairness for the haves and the have-nots?
You expect me to answer back that?
Wekesa, I think you've sort of cover or answer, or rather define for that gentleman the school infrastructure. And actually, you talk about, we had mentioned classrooms, we mentioned laboratories for the science practicals. You can also include like the halls, the open field for games equipment, dormitories, sanitization facilities, and others.
Okay.
And I think for the gentleman to understand, just pick a school maybe in Nairobi, and pick another school in interior Masai land where there are no roads, there are no classrooms, they're learning under the tree or from you will be able to understand the school infrastructure definition.
Okay. Can I ask? Yes, I would want that gentleman to tell us whether these facilities have just disappeared or this is a problem we have been dealing with even in the former systems. Because we cannot refuse to change the theory of our education system, harping ourselves on problems that have been perennial and which we have been trying to solve over the years. Is it that classrooms have become scarce now? Is it that laboratories have become scarce now? Is it that the playgrounds have shrunk with the new system? I would want that answered.
Kesa, I may not be able to answer the gentleman now, but I would want him to do, or rather to find out the difference or the comparison between, say, the 844 and the CPC. You will be able now, for us to be able to implement the CPC, then you'll be able to understand.
Okay, I've gotten the clip that you are asking. Let me see if I can share it. Perhaps what you are looking for is that. Let's hear what Soshoni was saying.
Is treating this matter casually. It's an issue of national interest, and it's an issue of professional rollout. The moment you don't roll out or reform, undertake curriculum reforms professionally, then that is a real threat to the nation. And I want to agree very strongly. We must bite the bullet. The issue is, at this stage, there has to be a proper forensic audit of the rollout. In fact, the studies by Professor Fatuma Chege should have been done at stage 2 of the curriculum development. That is development of policy formulation. Why do you appoint a task force? To help you in developing a policy for the CBC. But you cannot do it once you have rolled out and without even carrying out a thorough summative evaluation of the rollout.
Yeah.
I think the way forward for CBC is very clear. The government must bite the bullet and accept that it has failed. Because look at it, the feedback from the field. Teachers are frustrated and stressed. There is still too much work on the side of parents. They're expected to buy a lot of so many learning materials. And there are about, I think, 13 areas, 13 portfolios per learner. And we saw yesterday the studies by the USAID. And it said very clearly that literacy and learning of Pride, the program that has been running since 2015, has gone down, basically because of reduced time for learning of languages at the lower primary. These are significant data that are coming out, and we cannot do this thing politically. We cannot make pronouncements politically that this is what has to be done. It must be informed professionally through careful studies. And looking at countries like South Africa, where teachers taught for a while CBC, and until they protested and reverted back to the outcome-based curriculum, which Sifuna is trained on. He's not trained on competency-based pedagogy, and the teachers to teach competency-based curriculum must be trained right from the pre-service level. You cannot pick teachers who are trained on another orientation of pedagogy teaching. All of us, we are trained on outcome-based curriculum, and we can teach 7.423 and 8.44. But the competency-based needs a completely new breed of teachers to be trained from the teacher training colleges. And to me, if Kenya needed, honestly, CBC, competence-based curriculum, then they should have started by training a cohort of teachers at the teacher training colleges and universities. That is where it should have begun. And that is where studies should have been carried out. Which country has done it? What requirements were done? As it stands at the moment, the infrastructure remains a challenge in almost all schools, whether private or public. And continued insistence on something that does not work will create inequality. Look at public schools. Go to Olympics Primary School here in Kibera with a class of 100 learners, and you are expected to prepare portfolios at the end of every lesson for every learner, and with one teacher in class. That is impossible. So number one, infrastructure. We need to invest on infrastructure in every class as we roll out and rational the class sizes. Is the country ready? Does it have the requisite resources? Look at what Uhuru Kenyatta is doing. For the last 10 years, he has not revised the capitation in primary school for the school children. The rate is still what Kibaki started with in 2003. And let us look at the political inconsistencies of our leaders. In 2002, Kibaki said free education will be possible for Kenyans. And Uhuru Kenyatta said it is not possible. Now in 2021, the rates of financing for primary school children remains at around 1,000. And you still expect to roll out a curriculum that is resource intensive in terms of money and in terms of infrastructure. This is infrastructure. We are not ready. The public schools are not ready. Number two, intensive training of teachers and deployment of teachers. This has not been done. And these are real facts. The economics of CBC we need to discuss. For this country to roll out CBC, because even strong economies like UK have stated, have not rolled out. And they can't shift to that because they don't have resources. Why are we doing this as a country? Number three, parent preparation. You know, you look at CBC, teachers are supposed to be withdrawn, to be reduced in more learning involvement, and parents have been brought in to get involved in a number of ways in terms of availing resources. And in fact, if you do a survey across the Kenyan parents, they are more disturbed and they don't understand this strange curriculum called CBC. Way forward, if really we need competencies in our learners, because what are competencies? Basic education means basic by definition. And basic education means concretizing knowledge. It's a knowledge strengthening stage of learners. Because let me ask, a child in class 1, what competencies are you really bequeathing a learner in class 1 that you need to nurture to the very tail end of the basic education? Learners in primary, and even secondary, you still strengthen aspects of reading, numeracy, and you are concretizing knowledge so that then competencies can come in at the post-basic. This is now where the tertiary institutions come in. And I think this can be revised. And I agree with Professor. And even if studies are carried out, we should bite the bullet and reduce the reforms to a review. Many countries that have been forced, because this is a foreign imposed curriculum which is meant to create market for certain products like computer wares, for Microsoft and all others. And if you look at those who are involved in this, these are global business fraudsters. That's why they can't convince the top economists of this world. And therefore, we need to review from reforms to review. What we can customize into the existing 844, let us do it. Look at the mess in 2023. How will our secondary school accommodate over 2 million learners while the schools are already suffering from congestion with 100% transition? We need to bite the bullet, reduce it to a review, and maintain the 844.
Okay, your quick comments, James, then Mala, as we bring in Mohammed.
I think we also need to look at the history of those giving views. I would want to ask a very simple question. What has this man ever supported? As far as I know, there is no suggestion that has ever been made in the education sector that he has not rubbished. The fact that he also talks about other people coming to make money in the education sector, we can also ask, is it that he's resisting because there are interests that will be disrupted? There is something called the philosophy of education. And the philosophy of education is that what do you want to achieve in the end, at the end of the day? This is at individual level. What is the learner going to get out of education system? And what is the government objective in delivering a certain philosophy? So the things he's talking about have always been with us. We've never had adequate classes. And I insist again, maybe it's just at the level of adequate training of teachers, which is also up to now also debatable. I still think that there is more than meets the eye here. The high sounding ones. Somebody said when you hear somebody talk so many ones in to explain a rather simple thing, that person is hiding something. For me, I don't agree with him. And while I also acknowledge that the challenges he's talking about do exist, but they are not in the magnitude that he's trying to put them to be. In fact, if you do a deeper analysis of what he's talking about, you find there are underlying interests that are threatened and which he has been safeguarding over the years. So I'm not amused by the kind of talk, because when you hear also somebody who does not give a clear roadmap out of what he calls a challenge, then and in any case, who say that we should strictly follow other countries? Every country has its objectives, its goals. We know ourselves. We know where, at what stage we are in development paradigm. So I think we cannot use teething problems to rubbish a new philosophy of education that is meant to be more learner-centered rather than ramming down knowledge to children like they don't have also brains that they can expand their knowledge and come out of the system much better than the past. So I completely disagree with him, totally. We can scale the stairs as we chew the gum. The teething problems will be solved along the way. And I think that will serve us better. That's it. I'm done.
Thank you.
Hear me? Yes.
Mohammed?
Oh, I thought it was there not somebody before me?
Okay, was it Mala?
Oh, Mala, you've spoken. Sorry
Yeah,
for that.
I can contribute.
Yeah, he can.
Because that was the clip you were waiting for, so you
Yes.
can make
This is Zoshan now, and this is the guy I was talking about. And as you can see, I think it was after that conference, after that at Citizen TV, is when now the government followed him, and they made sure that Nat is dead. He's been pushed out of Nat because of the CPC. But in short, I think I totally support him. He's talked a lot of points which the government could have listened, and the way on what needs to be implemented, and the ones, because the government could have listened to him, discuss and agree on what is implementable and what's not. And for sure, the implementation of the new system as it is should be stopped. It should be stopped to save the parents from the burden they are facing and the complaints of the system being costly, as well as its adoption. And when you look at the CPC, CPC has a very tight deadline for children's assignment. The money that is required to purchase learning materials in primary schools is one of the complaints the parents are giving out. And I think Soshan is right. and the government should go back. They should listen to him, and also listening to other stakeholders like was same views as Social. Otherwise, I think the next government in 2022 should move fast and stop this CPC unless the government stop all the infrastructures going on in Nairobi and they channel all the monies, all the resources to the education sector, to education sector for the implementation of this program. Thank you, Wagesa.
Before I bring in Mohammed, let me read this comment from Patrick Masika. He says that parents are not struggling. CBC should be done as per the level of the school. All we are seeing are social media gibberish. Ask parents like me with a child doing CBC. Imagine my baby in grade 2 can draw a 3D figure and many other things. Let's get real. So this is a parent who is giving his own feedback and says that the rollout of CBC has made his child to be more competent at as early as in grade 2, and as a chora 3D figure. So does it mean, okay, can we have
okay, Wekesa, maybe you can ask the
before you come in, can we also see that there are positive things that the program has brought to our children, maybe as compared to 844? Is there a difference? Are there tangible results we can associate with the CBC? That is maybe the big question. Mala, you are saying something. You are on mute, Mala. Mala, you are on mute.
I was wondering whether the parent who contributed, whether the child is in Nairobi, the school is in Nairobi, or is in a remote area.
In other words, you are saying CPC is not creating uniformity, isn't it?
Yes.
So those who are in areas with infrastructure,
yes,
that what will still come back to haunt us. Those who are in areas with infrastructure are able to see more results than those who don't have.
Yes.
And somehow, Wahome.
Yes.
Do you buy this idea? Look at your child who is able to use a phone, and us who grew up in the village drawing things in the running the who is more accessible. These children who are accessible to digital information, are they more competent than those who are in rural areas not exposed to information?
I think the first question we should also ask ourselves is what level of technology, ICT, laptops is required in the CBC. If we are able to answer that question, then we can move to the question, is a rural child who does not access internet disadvantaged? Because you see, what I'm saying here is that this is a new philosophy of education that is learner-centered, and the internet is just a delivery tool. Therefore, I I saw one of the teachers saying, although they may not have some of those, internet connectivity or that, they improvise. And that is the philosophy behind this education system, that you don't just meet an obstacle and just sit there. You use your knowledge to improvise, to innovate, to open up your mind. And therefore, when you say that the child in Nairobi, because he has internet connectivity, is much better praised, partly yes, because maybe there is much more knowledge that the child will be exposed to through the internet. But is that the philosophy behind the CBC? The CBC, you should first understand what actually it intends to bring forth to the student. So when you just pinpoint one thing, that the whole child does not have a smartphone and therefore is disadvantaged, it is really not, it's laughable. It is not true. It's not true, because what I understand here is that,
I'm getting your point, Wahome.
Yes.
Wahome, what Wahome is saying is, yes,
Wekesa, you know, Wekesa, you know, we are talking about school in the remote area where the children are learning under the tree. There's no there's no classroom. They have not even seen electricity. They're using those lamps, you know. There are no textbooks. You cannot even talk about the laptop.
Mala, what I'm getting from Wahome is that okay, CBC is not meant to bring equal, because the society will never be equal. But ideally, what he's saying is, at the level you are, can CBC unlock your creativity such that you can be effective at the level you are? Just as when we talk about economic development, a farmer in the village is thinking about, how do I multiply my cassava? Another person is thinking about, how do I multiply my goods in the kiosk? Another person, how do I make my fish pond to become more big so that I can grow my economy? Another person is thinking about, how do I increase my matatu fleet so that it can be, okay, I can cover more routes and become more economically viable. And another person is thinking about, how to I grow my airlines to Singapore to. In other words, the society is never equal, but at every level you are you able to unlock your potential? So CBC is meant to unlock your potential regardless of where you are.
Can I add something? Can I add something?
Proceed.
Yes, I think one of the things that emerged in the system that we are moving from is that you can imagine a child in Northeastern being asked about coffee in an exam. The child has never traveled anywhere near a coffee tree, and you are examined on account of, you ask a question that is so specific to coffee that you have had maybe knowledge of seeing that tree, but that child has never seen. Or alternatively, a child in the Central is asked about camels and milk camel and that kind of thing. So CBC, the way I have understood it, is that it makes the learner first to understand the environment in which you are, and you create an awareness of what is around you, in terms of and vegetation, in terms of cultural, inclination, in terms of so many things, business and all that. So that when you are going through the education system, you are able to fit in quite well. You discover that the system that we are moving from is such that it was tailored in a manner that the child would finish education without exactly knowing the environment very well, and also perhaps even not understanding himself or herself because of the manner the manner of delivery. But with CBC, I think I have seen that attempt to make the runner understand himself, herself, to understand the environment, to understand those responsibilities are individual, to understand the society, to understand the boundaries of the society, and that kind of thing. So for me, I will go back to what I said, the philosophy of education. What are the objectives? Let us not also become so elitist to a level where we just throw around ones that a child in Nairobi and the one in Mandera. That has always been there. In fact, I think this is a better system than the one we had before, because at least the other one, what we have now, CBC is making an attempt to make the learners appreciate the environment in which they are attending their education. So I still feel that CBC is the way to go. They are teething problems, yes, but for those saying that you refer to their own system, I don't think they understand where we are going as a country. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your contribution. Mohammed, I've kept you on the edge.
Hi, Wekesa.
Yeah, hi.
Hi. Yeah, so I agree with a few things from either speakers who spoke before me. But does anybody, I just have a quick question before I say what I need to say. Does anybody know the costs behind this change of curriculum?
Pardon?
Changing
the cost of implementing the new curriculum, or the cost of what?
Yes, the cost of implementation.
Yeah, we can't quantify, but we know there's a lot of input for you to bring up a new system.
Yeah, so that's the thing. I think before it would be important for all of us to know. You know, cost is a very important. It's a very vital part of anything, and especially when the cost of implementing a new system, whether it's in the education sector or a different sector, is being paid for by taxpayers' money. We need to know the figures behind this change. So I think it's even more important.
I saw somewhere last year, and I think it was translating to about 356 billion in 4 years. In 4 years.
Yeah. See, that's a lot of money. That's a lot of money, and I don't know. I think it's the wrong time to I'm not against change. There was a speaker who spoke before who said that change will always be resisted. That's true sometimes, but again, change is resisted sometimes because you just don't need that change at that moment, and that's what I think about the change of the curriculum right now. It's we have more pressing issues. So yeah, that's just my quick opinion. So maybe another speaker can give their opinion.
Okay, thank you so much. It's brief to the point. Someone is telling me here that Eric, just as we are struggling to change from 844 to CBC, that's how you are struggling to change from the current political debates to this thematic debates. You see, you are not having many people on the show, and most people are not. Yeah, so someone has just texted me that, and I thought like, okay, change is always resisted, and people like the easiest thing. So sometimes and not like the easiest thing is the best, but we like our comfort zone. We like the things we can do without much stress. The routines, the things we are used to, we are okay with that. But if you are told now you need to invest your reasoning and everything and your resources, that's when people will really come on your neck. So I want to welcome Tony and Demba. Feel free to make your contribution on the topic.
Wakasa,
yes.
I want to read something that probably will enrich your discussion on CBC. Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
Now CBC has been implemented. This is something you can find online somewhere in the world. That is Kuwait. And the same discussion we have in Kenya is what a study on the same has come up with, and this is what they have in part of the report. They're saying that that is Kuwait, after it being implemented for 3 years. They say that CBC inefficiency in Kuwait with the communities was general refusal of change due to its highly conservative nature. So you see, the conservativeness of CBC has been one of the attributes that have been noted in the CBC implementation in Kenya. The other thing that the report says that the so-called failures of CBC has been related to insufficient teacher training prior to and during the implementation of the curriculum, which is also something that has been pointed out by those people who are trying to bring out arguments against CBC. The other thing is teachers being fully prepared to utilize CBC in their teaching has been also been noted as something that probably has been lacking. And the other concepts of CBC evaluation being seen as unfair, all right? And teachers being overloaded with work, all right? So those are some of the, I think comparatively you can look, but one thing to note, after 3 years of implementation, they say that the CBC has a better efficacy. And you know, they hold high to moderate satisfaction levels towards CBC in general after 3 years of implementation. I'm just throwing that there for purposes of comparative look at elsewhere where CBC has been implemented. So that is not an isolated case of Kenya, and it is not an isolated case of response to CBC as we notice it right now. Comparatively, that is something that has been noted in other places where CBC has been implemented. They say ESL teachers highly ranked CBC as achieving an easy evaluation system and a proper tool to enrich the overall education system. Right, so that is out of a report of a study after 3 years of implementation of CBC. So when we look at Kenyan implementation of the curriculum at the moment in an isolated format, those are some of the challenges that we are likely to find, okay? Because there are cases of preparation, cases of probably teachers who are not well trained, maybe overload, as opposed to the previous curriculum where you'd only do 25% and allow the children to cram the rest, and then they wait to come and regurgitate the same information after 4 years of study. So that was an easier and lesser demand from even the parents, who know that if I take my children to school, they'll go and cram, and then of course papers were flying all over. And so we were creating a certain kind of a machine that is just waiting to bring that out. So that was easier, lesser demand from the parents, as opposed to CBC. Now, the things that we are noting right now have also been noted in other places. So we would discuss it in respect of where else has it been implemented, what are the challenges, and are our challenges unique? They are not unique, right? And therefore, I just need to put that in so that we can probably discuss in the backdrop of that.
Okay, thank you. That's very enlightening. I had Rwanda had implemented it. I don't know who has more information on that. Tony, you are welcome. I'll make your submission before maybe I bring something else.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much. And let me say hi to everyone in here today.
Hi to you, we miss you.
Thank you, sir. Although I do not have a lot of information or knowledge about that competency-based curriculum, since it started, I think I've been briefly in the country and I've been out. So, and I don't have a child involved in that, so I've not been really following it. Actually, I can say ignorance about that, but I can generally speak about education in Kenya and education compared to the other outside world. Not a particular country, but I can say to the outside world, because we are educating and raising our children not only for our country, or not only for our country, villages, tribe, but we are educating citizens of the world, so that at least they can feed to the world of academia of the world, and then they can also even feed to integrate and work with international professionals. You see, when I happened to be among the pioneers of the 844 when it came, and I remember those days, how 844 started, and it was very controversial, and it was not accepted. And actually, that was the time when the economy was so bad during the Moi era in the 80s, and then there were no jobs, and people were saying, "What is this?" And then they changed the Ministry of Education to be, I think, Ministry of Science and Technology and Education, where the senator, the current senator of Kisii, Professor Ngeri, once held the portfolio of that technology portfolio. And the intent was like they were training, they were raising us in a way that when we grow up in our educational system, we don't come to find jobs in the white collar jobs. And then they were discouraging the rural urban migration. They were turning the reverse to be urban rural migration. So those are the situations that before those times that the system now we want to get rid of or cause at that time. Compared to this CBC, of which really I can't claim I know a lot about it, but I can simply compare it to the international. You know very well people of good income in Kenya, they take their children to schools like international schools. I don't know exactly the British system. There's some school in Nairobi I know, Breban and the other schools, which teaches the British types of education, because probably they believe that they want to equate the education of their children to the standards of the world. And this system, I am sure it's very much integrated to putting children in on the computers or on the web to be integrated, so that they can also compete with the outside world. In fact, if I have to tell you the truth, once a child comes out, once you come out of Kenya, there are some of the courses you did in the country, you find that they don't help you outside here. And there are some certificates, some even degrees that most universities or colleges do not even respect, because of the system of education that is not integrated enough. It's always better to have more than less or than few. It's always to have to adjust to the advancement of technology and of the world than just to remain archaic or to become to remain traditional in the way we used to know things. That process is expensive. It can be expensive from the start, but in later life it pays. Why I say that is because if you are hired from Kenya, from the University of Nairobi, and then you are sent to the UN to work in Switzerland or Britain or in America or UN maybe in New York, you will find that the people you work with are very different, and the way they do things. You did the same courses. Maybe you did say you did BComs or you did economics or wherever you did, and you sit in the same office doing the same job. You will find the way they do things, they approach the issues is very different from how you approach it. So I hope the CBC is cognizant of the fact of the changes of the world. Without that, our children will not get jobs outside. You see now, like for instance, you can go to the website of the UN career section and look for a job, put your CV there, and forward look for a job yourself online. Compared to other systems, when we used to know that you have to carry all your documents, take to human resources, and then hand over your paperwork. Now you have to know how to put it on the line, and it has to align with what they want, the requirements. Now, you see, once you go to the office, it's very different from what you learned in school. To be integrated on how to be with the other people, other international standards, is what CPC is trying to achieve. Why are we resisting change? In fact, from the traditional point of view, I can say from the village point of view of Kisii, where I grew up, at the time we were in school, in high school and everything, there were no jobs. And everybody was being told, don't try to look for a job because there is none. Kuwa carpenter, kuwa mechanic, kuwa nini, everything. And there are some parents who were discouraged to taking their children from primary standard 8 to take them to high school. And then they started taking them from standard 8 to carpentry and everything like that. Children who were smart. But as time has gone by, Some of those children are suffering and they are wallowing in poverty right now. So compared to some of us whose parents were a little bit informed and they let us go ahead. I hope the parents who are resisting CBC right now, they are not trying to drag their children to their archaic reasoning that their children will blame them later in life. In fact, you cannot resist age. If you are 30 years old today, next year you are going to be 31. You like it or not? If you are if we were doing 844 2 years ago, this year, we don't want to remain on 844 10 years to come. We want to move something else which is in alignment with the international standards. That is how we can grow. And that is why sometimes people who are privileged in the society, they take their children outside the country to study. Not simply because they have money, because they want their children to be competitive with the rest of the world. So when this CBC comes to the indigenous and the village mothers and fathers, they should accept that this is the way to go. Now, for instance, you know, the online classes or online degrees were not very well respected in the yesteryears. There are some places you cannot take an online degree and say that you have a degree. But COVID has changed a lot. And right now, online classes is the way to go for many universities. In fact, instead of forming those mushroom campuses, now they are going back to online classes. You can sit in your bedroom and you are in class. In the United States, that is what is going through. Actually, my daughter was in Form 3 and Form 4. That's when COVID started, and they started putting them on online classes. And when I was looking at some of the things they were doing, some of them I was not able to handle myself. Now she's in university, and she's just competing with anybody else, just like any other. But it has made her more sharper in using the computers to access the information she wants. We used to go to the library to look for journals on the library to do a paper, to some research work in our times. But nowadays, the Galileo library is on the web, that you can look for any topic, go to any scientific paper, any scientific journal, you find it there. How to write a scientific paper, it is there. So anyway, the point is, I'm saying, resisting change is archaic. And the people should accept that there comes a time that your age is not commensurate to your child's age. Let your child get the change they deserve. CPC is the way to go.
Wekesa.
Yes, my brother, go on.
Allow me to just point. I mean, if we do read that, I could recommend that report for all of us who may want to extensively understand the CBC. It is a report by Taiba Sadek, Rahim Akbar, and Fatima Al-Wazan, Competence CBC in Kuwait, from Ideal to Real. It was published online on December 2nd, 2020. Now, it's making some interesting conclusions that I'm reading. I was reading it and I was seeing our situation, okay? And especially the conclusion that it does of their research. First of all, they have given us some benefits and pros and cons. For example, pros: flexibility for both learners and teachers, keeps consideration individual learning abilities and skills, develops and integrates the 4 language skills at a time, fulfills the psychomotor skills of the students, and suitable for children who have the love and the passion to learn new things. It has several cons though. It is vague to teachers due to the lack of teachers' preparation in its implementation. So that is what we are seeing and what we are hearing a lot in our debates. Future teachers have never been exposed to CBC in any of their teaching methods courses, so the will of providing the school with the unqualified teachers. So that's the other thing we are seeing. Supervisors assigned by the Ministry of Education, lead practicing teachers seem to have no idea about CBC. That's another thing that we have had, right? It should be reflected in students' assessment. Implementation of conventional tests invalidates CBC in the eyes of teachers. So basically, if you read that report, you will realize we are not reinventing. I'm actually getting an interesting conclusion there. It says this, just the last paragraph in the conclusion. All in all, the present research suggests that CBC is a powerful tool that was implemented in the wrong place and at the wrong time. Learners have never ever learned to be self-disciplined, work out of deadlines with the required enthusiasm to learn. Teachers were not placed at any more favorable positions either. Teachers were ill-trained, and we can, when you read that, you hear the narrative that is going on right now. So I don't know if there was, if the implementers could have read a crossboard. Yes, it's a good tool. Something can be very good, but its implementation, like they're saying from their report, CBC in Kuwait failed, right? As much as it was a good tool. So it's something that we can borrow from, we can learn across, we can learn from, we can exchange ideas and read some of these things so that we don't repeat the same mistakes. Development is forward. If someone has done it, you want to look at it and improve on where they failed. And actually, they suggest that implementation of CBC should have been not from bottom up, but from up down. That is what they say.
Okay.
So I don't know what even as we discuss that, we can think about that, around that as we discuss the CBC thing.
Let me say something.
Mm-hmm. Okay, proceed,
Yeah.
sir.
Okay. What he read and what he said is an excerpt from the journal or from the academia work, which is an opinion and is a good scientific opinion, probably. However, there is no, if any society or any individual wants to advance and develop, you cannot look at the milestones you have to cross, and then you in the initial stages, and then you use them to decide what you have to do. There is a famous local quote. They say that we will cross the bridge when we reach there. But using the materials we have at the present to do the best we can. The problem is there probably was not no enough resources for the implementation of the system. But there is no uniform or a rubric of system that our country must follow in order to succeed. We have to chart our own way. Of course, having learned from the outside, we compare what we are doing, that whether it's aligning ourselves to the outside world, because we are not an island. We want our doctors, our locally trained doctors in the country, to compete to the doctors in Britain, US, and elsewhere. So we try to put resources to give them what they need in order to be competitive with the outside world. And I think that is the way we have to see our children. slowly from that first grade to the upper grade. And I will tell you this for sure. The children educated in the Kenyan system, they are more likely to be to succeed in the international arena than other children who are streamlined to a particular way of life. For example, in mathematics, I don't know how they do it today. We used to have the mathematics book. I remember very well my Form 3, that is when I started opening my eyes in mathematics. So you have maybe geometry, you have algebra, you have quadratics, you have everything in that book. But in the US or these other countries, if it is algebra, that's algebra, that's what you do. If it is quadratic, that's what you do.
I think the benefits are not in contest here. What we are discussing is the failures. And I think we need to focus on the failures than the benefits, because the benefit is very obvious.
I'm aligning them. I'm trying to compare them. I'm trying to compare our system to the outside world.
Let's focus on the other side, the disadvantages. You are focusing on the benefits.
Okay, all right.
That was very important.
Okay, fine. Okay, I restrict myself, sir. So my biggest point I want to make, CPC is a good way to go because it kind of streamlines our children to a particular direction where they want to go, which career they want to take. And I think that is how the rest of the world go. And if
Tony, let me ask you this. You see, in Kenya, we know there is a difference between what we want and what we have. For example, we can brag and say that we have the best constitution, that if this, you will hear politicians say, if this constitution was implemented, we will not even need reforms. We will have everything we have. But they don't implement. So are we also coming up with a system? It's a good system, but in terms of we're failing in implementation. Therefore, it will not serve its function. Are we coming up with a system? Maybe we have copied somewhere. Yes, it's working somewhere. But when we apply it on our soil, we are not able to implement it. And therefore, we are not achieving the intended purpose. Maybe that is the contention of Mala. He says, yes, there are advantages of the CBC, but we may not get them in the way we are doing it.
Exactly, and I think that's where we need to indulge our discussion on, or we need to deal with that specifics of why we do not have enough resources to do it well the way it's supposed to be done. One of the things, of course, you and me would know is it's not like we do not have resources, but the resources are not directed to the right channels that our teachers, educational professionals, and our children do not have the right materials to use. Or our educational professionals are not well prepared with that. So why can't we deal with that instead of dealing that the system is bad? The system is not bad, but the system has not offered the resources. We can deal with the policy issues. And I think that it should be separated. But change is needed. That one, I can tell you that we need change in the educational system, but how we have to do it with the policies and the process, it's something that must be worked on. With Mingi, let's put the right people there. Unfortunately, the cabinet minister, who is a professional, I respect, but he's full of hubris. Yeah. Ako na malingo
Okay.
mingi.
Thank you so much. Okay, I want to put 1 or 2 clips, and then we will comment and give our parting shots. I think we need also to take a rest. Tomorrow is a working day. So I will share 1 or 2 clips, and then we...
Ninaona hiyo ni fun.
Okay. I think there have been more than enough memes on social media in terms of CBC implementation, but I think there is a message that it passes. I want you to comment on on what is happening, these practical lessons, and in terms of a teacher-student relationship, is it enhanced as compared to the old system, where a teacher stands like a plenary speaker and then to the students? But here, it's like the interaction is so close. It's like parents have to be involved, teachers have to be involved. So what is your take on CBC? Let me start with Wahome, go to Mala, and then we finish with Tony.
Okay. I will say that the speaker who was just there has just confirmed what I had said before, that one, people resist change. Inevitably, we have to change. But that as it may, I think what is happening now is that the child will come out much better than the previous system, because there is a general attempt to to bring the child at the center of learning. They are not just merely sitting down and information or knowledge rammed into them, and then told to go and cram and then regurgitate and produce in the exam rooms. I think, as he has said, and as has been my stand, there will be teething problems, and they are there. But in the long term, this is what we should have done some years back, so that we can have people innovating. We can have children being more fulfilled in their lives. That you are not forced into something that you really did not want to do. That you don't waste time doing things that will have no relevance to your life or your career or your inclination. So basically, let's just give it time. He also talked about cost. I'll ask him, did he know the cost of implementing the new constitution? Who knows? Who sat down and disintegrated the various things that we proposed in the new constitution, and saying that we require this amount of resources or this kind of money? Of course, I'm not downplaying the fact that a budget is important, but you notice that when you bring forth new ideas, they can take you to uncharted waters. And I think this is what is going to happen with our new education system, the CBC. It will take us to uncharted waters. We are going to discover the kind of students we have, the kind of children we have. They will bring forth knowledge, enrich the education system. And as my friend also said, according to the research that he was quoting, in the long run, we will find that we took the right decision. In any case, I think it is also important to ask the students whether they are satisfied. And like before, when no such thing was done, I think this time it is possible to work alongside these students. The teachers need to up their game. I think that closes my remarks on that topic today.
Okay, thank you so much for that. We go to Marlon, then we finish with Tony, as we call it a night.
Thank you, Ekeza. Again, I will go back and say that the government, led by Uhuru, should not have rushed and force it to the parents. The government should have adequate planning. They should have done enough research, involve all the stakeholders. It should not be the president and the CS pushing it on the people. They should have done it in a very methodical way and do the implementation. Remember, I read somewhere and was saying that it requires 90 billion by year to implement this program. In 3 years, about 300, and in 4 years, about 360 billion. So this lack of resources is the main thing. And I'm wondering whether the government should have done even adequate piloting before rolling out this CPC process. Remember, there was also lack of enough trained teachers. And the teachers who are trained to take on the new curriculum were very few,
wealthy pupils are so many in the country. Government should have focused and listen to these guys from NAT and the other union and implement or rather review their recommendation. Because if you listen to that clip, I listened to that clip, and so Sean was saying they did some research between January and February, and they shared their findings to the government, and the government should have taken it seriously. So this lack of enough trained teachers is also contributing to the failures we are seeing. We talk extensively on inappropriate infrastructure or poor infrastructure, and we're saying that the new curriculum content requires modern classrooms. Some of them require even smart boards. I saw you are displaying there, maybe smart boards, maybe laboratories, and you mentioned that, Wakeza, creative centers, and technologies at all levels. You see now the curriculum is already in place, and this infrastructure were never put in place before the implementation. And that's a very, very big concern, which most parents have been raising, but the government does not want to listen. And that's why some people have moved to court. Even the materials, talking about the textbooks, and if you go through some of those textbooks, there's some mistakes in some of the proposed syllabus on this CPC, because maybe understand even some of the books they were printed in speed to take on this new curriculum, and it had a lot of printing and the content errors which were never edited or rather approved, and these are some of the issues causing some of these failures. Of course, I will not discuss the benefits; those are obvious, but we need to focus on these failures if we are to address the issues affecting the CPC. That's my submission, Wakesa. Thank you.
Finally, Tony, take us home.
Okay, thank you. Let me say that change is inevitable, and anybody who resists change will remain archaic or on a traditional stage. There is no good time to make a change other than when the time is right or when your mindset is ready. You cannot go to war with the kind of hammering you need to have. You go to war with the hammering you got. And I think the change to CPC, they went to change or to the war with the kind of resources they had, and in the due process of the war, the kind of weapons and the resources have to be improved, because change is against the time. It's time for change. Now, there is I can sense some bitterness from some people, some quarters, who feels like they have to negate. There's some professionals who have to negate because probably they feel they never got the piece of cake that they wanted in the so-called change. Now, for what I mean by that is like if like the teachers who used to teach the other system, they were being trained to teach the new system, and some of them feel disgusted that their terms of service should have been paid, or the remunerations, compensation should have also changed well. Or if they never change, if it changed, it never changed to the extent they could accept. And that is something that is kind of disrupting most of our educational professionals, which of course is right, but it does not give them a right to stop the process from going on, because this is our children's future. Imagine the rich are taking their children to the international schools and even outside the country, because they know that's the kind of education that they want their children to have. And this education is being brought to the local person, Mama Mboga, so that we can start from the kindergarten and to up, so that we can raise them up high. They grow with the system, and some people are resisting. They are resisting, and while they complain, nyinyi hata wale watu wako na pesa, hata watoto wao wasomi Kenya. Why they are wasomi Kenya? Because they don't agree with the system of Kenya, and once they are changing it, then they are resisting it. They are running to court. So well, now, how do they want to be helped? Some of this is I think the intention is not good. I think the intention is popularity, and also the intention is evil in the sense that they think because they had in their professions, they know best. But the world is changing. You cannot stop the world from change because you want to hold on your view. So I think let's accept that we, our parents, we are fading off, and our children are facing another world. Let's be ready, prepare our children to face their world, because ours is now and is fading off. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for the panelists for your contributions on this topic. I know it's not an easy topic, but you guys have tried to share your views, and you're highly appreciated. Thank you also for those who have been, the viewers who have been following us from the comment sections. We have had quite a number of comments, some testimonies of what has happened with the CBC, and also the challenges that you've encountered. And so we value the comments that you give us. Thank you for keeping being loyal to this channel and keeping awake up to this time just to watch this channel. Okay. Although I also need to recognize that people are watching from different parts of the world. So not everybody is at night. Some are daytime at work, and they have taken their time just to follow us. We appreciate that. I just want to say, in line with some of the scientific facts, if you want a seed to germinate, the seed has the potential to germinate, yes, but there are conducive environment you create for a seed to germinate. For example, a seed needs the right temperature, it needs the light, it needs the water or moisture, and it needs the soil. We are predisposing our children to the right curriculum so that they can blossom their potential. Yeah, but all these right factors needs to be in place. And that's why we talk about the infrastructure and enabling environment for them to blossom. So yes, we may get it right in terms of the curriculum, but until we avail the necessities that are required for the curriculum to be effective, it may fail not because it was not the right curriculum, but the enablers. The enablers who are not there. So let's work on that, the enablers that need to make the program succeed, and we will be able to work out this program and let our children explore their potential. I will finish by the quote of Abraham Lincoln, who said that if I'm given 8 hours to cut a tree, I'll take 6 hours sharpening the axe. Indeed, there needed to have been enough quality time to think through the process, to think through the requirement for the CBC so that when it comes out, it brings the required energy and change that we really long in our education system. Otherwise, too many hiccups can burn out the whole process, and we may lose the child with the water bath. Have a good night. God bless you, Mala. God bless you, everybody. Let's meet tomorrow in a different discussion. Have a wonderful night.